This podcast is produced by the Fireside Chat Club of Canada.
When we were in school, reminder, school for us was Ryerson for radio and TV broadcasting, and occasionally we'd go into the booth and just make up things. And one of them was a hockey broadcast once, and we were just fooling around. We were probably so tired, going days without sleep. But anyway, we started calling a game, and we started giving advertising names to places around the rink. The Labatt's Blue Line, and we wondered about how ludicrous it would be to have advertisements all around the boards. I think they had just started doing that back then. And now they not only have that, they have advertisements on the ice, and they have dynamic advertising around the boards. When you're watching the game, you'll see the ads change as the game goes on. And that, if we only knew, if we'd only patented that years ago, gosh, we'd all be millionaires by now.
Hello, and welcome to Canada as I See It.
I have been listening to hockey games on the radio and TV for 55 years. And back in the day, it was 1430 CKFH in Toronto. I used to listen to Foster Hewitt. I did for one game. Usually it was his son, Bill. But I did listen to Foster call the 1972 Soviet Canada series. But I digress. Anyway, as was the norm for stations in those days, there was a reason for the call letters. CKFH in this instance was, the FH was for Foster Hewitt. He actually put the station on air in 1951. First it was at 14 kilohertz, then it settled in at 1430. And it wasn't only a sports station. Well, like we have these days, everything is so segmented and focused. But it was just a station that broadcast the Toronto Maple Leafs games. And then it also gave us the Montreal Expos. This was prior to the Blue Jays that they did eventually start airing. And as I mentioned, the Canada-Soviet series. So that's when I heard Foster. But everything that this man did, it was groundbreaking. You can give him the credit, I think, for putting this sports station bug in the ear of some radio consultant. Although, truth be told, I hate radio consultants. I will eventually get to the name title of this podcast, Honest. But, hey, you downloaded this and I go off on tangents, right? Let's talk about Foster for a bit. I'm going to set the stage. Foster began sports broadcasts in 1923 on CFCA. And that was the Toronto Star. That's a newspaper. The Toronto Star radio station. CFCA stood for Canada's Finest Covers America. Now, these days, CFCA is a station broadcasting from Kitchener-Waterloo. But, again, like most stations now, they have corporate branding. It's now known as 105.3 Virgin Radio. But their reason for choosing CFCA, which is still its official call sign, it was for Carl C. A. Pollock. No, he was the founder of that station. Okay, sidetrack. Hockey, yes. The first game that Foster broadcast on CFCA was on February the 16th, 1923. It was an OHA game, Ontario Hockey Association game, between the Toronto Argonaut Rowing Club and the Kitchener Green Shirts. I guess the mascot wasn't a thing back then. They went into 3 periods of overtime, so you got to hear a lot of them on that broadcast. The first NHL game, this one wasn't called by Foster, but it was actually on that same station a couple days earlier. It was one between the Toronto St. Pats, and that was a predecessor of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and those are actually the green uniforms that the Leafs will wear on St. Patrick's Day. And they played the Ottawa Senators, but not the ones you see today. No, these were the original ones. But, go back even further, the absolute first hockey broadcast was 6 days before that, on February the 8th, 1923. Toronto Daily Star, the station, remember, the sports reporter Norman Albert, he called the third period of an Ontario Hockey Association intermediate playoff game at Arena Gardens. This was also known as the Mutual Street Arena, and subsequently the Terrace, where this young teenager used to roller skate from time to time. Anyway, Foster called hockey games for 42 years. He retired actually in 1965, but as I mentioned, he did return to call the Canada-Soviet series in 1972. And that hockey announcing thing had to be in the blood, for sure, because his son, Bill Hewitt, he effectively took the reins from his father. He began calling games on radio for the Leafs in 1951, then taking over on television from his father in 1959, and then he continued for 22 years. His replacement was the man I remember probably the most, Bob Cole. He began calling games in 1973 and took over as Hockey Night in Canada's play-by-play voice in 1980. And that was just when I was hitting the prime of my hockey consuming. All of those, just amazing careers. But the gentleman who just towered over all of them just retired. Joe Bowen. He began calling Leaf games in 1982, his first being October 6th of that year in Chicago, when the Leafs played the Blackhawks. He was on radio for the most part, although he did do the occasional TV gig, as I'll get to that a bit later on. And he did so for 44 seasons. Wow. And the thing with radio announcers, too, they always seem to, they have their own style. And I think, I enjoyed listening to every one of those guys. But I'll tell you, for example, Foster, he was known for his, he shoots, he scores. Danny Gallivan, he usually called Montreal Canadiens games. He gave us Spinarama for the dance-like moves, usually from Steve Savard. He would also praise the cannonading drives coming from anyone on the team. Let's see, Bob Cole, he had his, oh, baby, when the Leafs would score a big goal or if there was a play that was beyond words. Let's see, Joe, he had a lot of these phrases, but his one, which is likely going to be sold on a T-shirt, it if it isn't already. He used this when the Leafs were really performing at a super high level, and it was holy mackinaw. And he said he got the phrase from his dad, who didn't want to swear. So, like gee willikers or, cheese and crackers or something like that. Holy mackinaw. We heard a lot of it last year when the Leafs made their deepest playoff run in years, but not so much this year. In fact, I watched an interview of him after his last home game, and he said, well, let's be honest, this season was a pile of dog doo-doo. You always knew what was on his mind. I mean, you could even hear what he might have said otherwise, if not for the influence of his father. Joe was born on April 5th, 1951, in Sudbury, Ontario. And so, well, today being the 19th, he's just turned 75. He graduated from the University of Windsor in 1973 with a degree in, go ahead, take a wild guess. Yeah, it had to be communication arts, right? Something to do with broadcast. Well, right after graduation, he returned home to call games for the Ontario Hockey League's Sudbury Wolves, and he moved quickly after that. 5 years later, he moved to Halifax and called games for the American Hockey League Nova Scotia Voyageurs, while holding the position of sports director at a couple of local stations. 3 years after that, like everyone, he got a call to try out for a small team who played at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. Yeah, them. And the rest? Yup, history. He joined radio station CJCL, which was CKFH, Foster Hewitt's station. That's what that had changed into. Just a change of call letters. Telemedia, actually, the company Telemedia bought the station, and that's when that changed. And he became the radio voice of the Leafs. As the rights for Leaf broadcasts changed from year to year and from station to stations, so moved Joe. 1 year, he was at Q107, which is now a classic rock station here in Toronto. He added TV announcing to his resume then. He connected with Global Television, On TV. Now it's known as it was originally, CHCH. They do all the old classic TV shows now. And then he moved to TSN and Sportsnet Ontario. Well, he moved permanently back to radio in 2014 and settled back at Sportsnet. Also, see, that's the brand name. It's CJCL. So he effectively came full circle. He called his final game last Wednesday, April 15th, in Ottawa, against the Senators, the new Senators. The total of all the games, I couldn't get an exact number for some reason. I don't know why, but he called over 3,800 games. Now, the thing about the away games, when he said he was retiring, I think it was close to after the beginning of this season. Part of the reason was because all of the away games, games that were not played at Scotiabank Arena here in Toronto, they were called off of a TV monitor, which only showed them what the broadcast was, what was being fed to it. This procedure happened after the pandemic. It led to him sometimes missing things that perhaps happened behind the play or anything where he was not looking and could not see what was going on. He often made reference to it, and not in a nice way. Essentially, it was part of the bean counters in the corporate towers deciding that they could save money by not sending an announcing crew to games outside of Toronto. I don't have good things to say about radio and how it's run either. Why do you think I have this podcast? Right? As much as I miss a career that wasn't had in radio, I did work in radio. I just wanted to use the voice, and that never happened. I did escape the emotional damage that would have come with having to deal with radio and the inevitable consultants. But I'm not bitter. Joe eclipsed the career of his hero. He was named the 2018 recipient of the Foster Hewitt Memorial Award. He gave us 44 years of his life as the voice of the Leafs, and frankly, I'm going to miss him next year. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much, and happy retirement. I will post some links of some historic plays that Joe made over the years. Usually happy stuff, but I think there's a couple of clunkers in there. Just head to my website, warpole.ca, WHORPOLE.ca, and click on Show Links on the left side of the screen, just below the big I. Yeah, not capital I, the eyeball I. Today's show was introduced by my longtime friend, Trevor. Trevor lives out west now, and whenever we do get together, I let him know every time that I miss our get-togethers at a Scottish pub here in Toronto, where we would settle in, order pints and food, but mostly pints, and solve all of the world's problems in one evening. If you'd like to be a part of this space and introduce the show like he did today, please send me a recording of you saying, "This podcast is produced by the Fireside Chat Club of Canada." And you can send that to me at warpole.ca. And if you listen to the show on the regular, this is what we now call yellow rectangle time. Yes. Please do consider donating to the show. If you go to the website, in the upper right corner, there's that yellow rectangle, and it's called Buy Me a Coffee. If you do that, the money comes directly to me, and it helps me maintain the equipment. And I have to admit, occasionally she does get a little cranky with me, but it helps with the equipment. And if I decide to travel anywhere and do something like that, I did at the beginning of this season. We did a couple of road trips that you might have seen on my online reels and such. And that's what that's for. So please do consider that. As far as the show's numbers, wow, they do continue to grow. Way back when, I would probably get an average of 20 people downloading the podcast a week. And as time's passed, that average is now up to 20 per day. As of the day of recording this podcast, the total numbers are 632 for the last month. And over 4,400 downloads all time. Thank you. Wow. That's just incredible. Canada, as I see it, is a production of the Fireside Chat Club of Canada. The music you heard off the top, and that's playing right now, is our theme music. That's Night Owls by Braden Deal. Thank you all so much for listening, and have yourselves a wonderful week.